This section is about transforming and taking your organization from maybe doing 1 or 2 teams agile, and how do you roll that out and scale it to the whole organization. We're only going to briefly touch on that here, and we're going to look at it a little bit from a tool set view. If you want a full presentation on transformation, I have a 4-hour training just on how to use flow to do transformation. So I would suggest that you would take a look at that if you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of a transformation. There's a difference between transformation, scaling, rollout, and governance. When we look at how do we achieve these results, we use almost everything in the Flow toolkit in order to achieve these results. As I mentioned in one of the other slides, you're going to be using the Cascading Vision, the power of the one thing, cascading the VSPT down throughout the organization. And in the other training series, I talk about dilution. As at every layer, you're losing a portion of the message, so that by the time you're down to the individual, they're maybe getting half of the original intended message. And that's why Dr. Cotter talks about scaling, or your vision for the change needs to be communicated 10 times more than you think. The way he worded it was, we undercommunicate the vision for change by a factor of 10. So we need to communicate the vision for change continually, the water torture of good news, as Ted used to call it. And you need to be able to link back to the level above from the individual team, the project, if you're using those, definitely from the program level up. You need to be able to link that back. Use the power of the one thing. Don't overwhelm your executives with a lot of noise. Don't send 10 one things back up the food chain. Take those 10 and figure out which one is most important and send that back up the food chain. That way, your executives have a chance to even look at what it is that you may need and start to get a feel from the organization, what is it that they need to do in order to support the teams so that they can be successful. As I mentioned, with the AHA curve, you need to use it in all 4 boxes. This is an older picture where we still have the I, we, it, its, and I've substituted in individual, team, product, and organization instead. And for product, I include program, process, line management, and in the organization, the lower right corner, I include the portfolio level upwards to the executives. With the individuals, you need to use the 4R model and the power of that, and you can use it as a root cause analysis tool, and we show you how to do that in the Flow Certified Professional training. And since individuals are in all 4 boxes, technically you use the 4R model in all 4 boxes, and the same for the 4D model as well, because most of the time these days people are working in teams, so it's important for them to be within the process. And so the 4D model is used obviously at the team level and also at the product, program, process, line management levels as well. And you use those in order to enable your teams to succeed. When we get to the enterprise level, there in the lower right-hand corner for the organization, that's where an enterprise or executive agile coach needs to know when to put on the agile coaching hat and when to put on the management consulting hat. It depends on if you're looking at anticipatory vision, disruption, innovation, things like that. They're on the left of that figure 8 infinity symbol, or if you're talking about operational excellence on the right hand side. It's not an either or, it's a both and. And it's something that I think is missed by most of the agilists, that, I actually have to be able to understand both of those and apply both of those as needed and be able to pivot really quickly to do that. And keep in mind that the language spoken in that lower right corner is the language of leadership. And primarily in those other three boxes, it's the language of management. And so as an enterprise or an executive agile coach or consultant, you need to be able to speak the language of leadership and help the executives grow into their new role as an agile champion. If you're not able to do that, if you don't understand that politics is a blood sport, you're going to get slaughtered. And there's even a video I've included in the series for the Flow Certified Professional where Jamie decorporatizes himself. And he left the right hand two boxes and went over to the lower left corner there, back to the team level, because he got tired of working with the executives. And they would ask him, well, what do you do? And then he would tell them what to do, and then they wouldn't do it because the political cost for doing it was too high. Or they didn't adequately answer, hey, dude, what's in it for me? For those executives to invest their political capital into this thing called Agile, if they're not going to invest political capital into it and put their weight behind it, if you don't get that executive sponsorship, it's really hard to achieve the results. You can achieve some results in the team box, or you can achieve some results in the product or program box in the upper right hand corner. But you won't get the full benefit and you won't get the full return on your investment unless the executives are with for the journey. They have to get beyond talking the talk. They actually have to walk the talk and model the behavior and help the teams understand, oh, we actually are going to do this. Because if they don't do that, then it's going to be really difficult for the teams to succeed. And so if the executives are within the journey and they're not just doing Agile, but they're being Agile, that's going to permeate the entire organization and achieve the results that the executive wants. So I'm always a little surprised when the executives are unwilling to change. Because if anyone should be able to change and change quickly, it's an executive. They should be able to pivot very quickly and adapt to new circumstances at light speed. If they're not able to do that, if they're too close to retirement or they have too many individual blockers that are blocking them from being agile, then perhaps it's time for them to update their resumes and find someplace else to work that isn't interested in going agile. So that's just food for thought, and now we're going to go into a little bit about the scaling Agile. This is from the version 1 11th Annual State of Agile Survey. And you'll notice that Scaled Agile Framework is 28%. And at this time, Scrum of Scrums was being reported as an approach. And now this is important. There's a difference between the scaling methods and approaches. Scrum of Scrums is an approach. And I'm not going to go into all the details on how Scrum of Scrum works. My observation is that it is not a scaling methodology. It's an approach to try to create communication between multiple teams. Okay, if you're trying to get cross dependencies or integration items or things like that lined up between a whole bunch of teams that are working on the same product, then yeah, you could probably use Scrum of Scrums to do that. But it is not a program level scaling methodology like SAFe or LESS or Nexus or DAD or any of these others. Okay? And so you see the percentages here. I would recommend that you go to version 1 and download your copy for each year for maybe the last 3-4 years. It'll give you a really good feel. We're going to go through some of the years here. We're going to go through 11th, 12th, and 13th. Remember, this is a very tool-centric, tool set approach. This is not a mindset approach. And so some of the things that they're highlighting here reflect a very tools-oriented view of the world. And that's very much in that upper right-hand box of the 4 box that we use, where the program managers look at the world through a very specific lens, and it's program management. And so they're all into their processes and tools, and it's going to be a very tough road for them to switch over into Agile. And as they get better in Agile, they start to realize what are some of the weaknesses of each of these frameworks or models or methods or approaches. And so it becomes very difficult to continue to manage the programs the old way. Here's the 12th annual. You'll notice that Scaled Agile went up to 29%. Scrum Scrums went down to 19%. Internally created methods is at 10%. DAD is up around 5%. Large scale Scrum around 5%, and on and on and on. And some of them, like Rage, are basically falling off the page. So in the 12th annual version, the numbers are moving a little bit, but not too much has really changed.